chilling silence hangs in the air, a stark contrast to the gruesome scene that unfolds within the confines of a Costa Mesa apartment. Here in this unassuming residence, the unthinkable has occurred. Beneath the normalcy of a suburban life, a horror lurks that would send chills down even the most hardened of spines. In the aftermath of Thanksgiving Day in 1991, an atrocious discovery was made. William Nelson, a man known for his aviation skills and a past marred by prison time, was found dismembered. But the horror didn't end there. His head had been cooked, his hands fried in oil. The gruesome details sound like something out of a horror movie, but this was no fiction. This is a real-life nightmare that unfolded in the heart of California. The dismemberment was so extensive that the initial identification of the remains was a daunting task for authorities. The grim state of the body, mangled beyond recognition, posed a significant challenge. It was a scene that would haunt even the most seasoned of investigators, a tableau of terror that would linger long after the case was closed. And yet, amidst the chaos, there was a silent observer, a woman who watched as the authorities sifted through the macabre evidence, her expression unreadable. This woman was Oma Nelson, an Egyptian immigrant, a nanny, a model, and the wife of the deceased. Little did the investigators know, they were standing in the presence of a figure who would soon be compared to some of the most notorious criminals in history. As the investigation began to unfold, the chilling silence of that Costa Mesa apartment would soon be filled with the echoes of a gruesome tale of violence, fear, and the dark side of the human psyche. A tale that would force us to question what we think we know about the people around us and the secrets that can hide beneath the surface of an ordinary life. As authorities sift through the macabre evidence, a silent observer watches, Omaima Nelson. Born in the heart of Egypt in 1968, Omaima's life began amid the bustling streets of Cairo. Her early years were steeped in adversity, haunted by the distressing experience of female genital mutilation, a gruesome practice rampant in parts of her homeland. These early years were a crucible shaping Omaima, hardening her, and perhaps sowing seeds of the unimaginable horrors that were to come. In 1986, a young Omaima, eager to escape her past and pursue her dreams, embarked on a journey that took her thousands of miles away from the sandy landscapes of Cairo to the sun-kissed beaches of California. America, the land of opportunities, beckoned her, and she answered its call. She found employment as a nanny, caring for children in a land far removed from her own childhood experiences. But Omaima was not one to be confined to just one role. She was a woman of ambition, a woman of dreams. The bright lights of California, the glamour, the glitz, it all appealed to her. She pursued a career in modeling, seeking to make a mark in a world that was as far removed from her past as it could be. She strode down the runway, her past hidden behind the facade of beauty and grace, her dreams of a better life within her grasp. Yet beneath the surface, the scars of her past lingered. The experiences of her early life in Cairo, the adversity she faced, and the horrors she endured were not easily forgotten. They were a part of her, a part of the woman she had become. And as she navigated her new life in California, these experiences would shape her actions in ways no one could have predicted. However, her life would take a dark turn in 1991, fate intertwining her path with Bill Nelson. In a pool-playing bar, Omaima Nelson met Bill Nelson, a man 33 years her senior with a past tainted by crime. Bill was a former pilot, fresh from a 4-year stint in prison for marijuana smuggling. Despite his checkered past, he had managed to find employment with a company named Cannon Mortgage. Omaima, on the other hand, was a young Egyptian woman trying to make a living as a nanny and part-time model in California. Their connection was immediate and intense. Just a few days after their initial encounter, they were standing at the altar, promising to spend the rest of their lives together. The marriage was a whirlwind, as quick and unexpected as the romance that had preceded it. The age difference was stark, with Bill, then 56, standing 33 years older than his newlywed spouse. Yet they seemed unfazed by this, swept up in their swift romance. After their wedding, they set off for a honeymoon at a Texas ranch owned by Bill and his brother. The early days of their married life were marked by the excitement and bliss typical of newlyweds. But the initial euphoria of their relationship soon started to wane. The ranch, which had been a symbol of their commitment and love, slowly turned into a place of disillusionment and alienation. As the honeymoon phase faded, Omaima began to see a different side of Bill. She spoke of a darker side that had been hidden during their courtship and early days of marriage. This man, who she had fallen for so quickly, was not the man she thought he was. The veil of romance was slowly lifted, revealing a reality that was far from the dream she had envisioned. Despite the red flags, Omaima stayed, hoping that things would change. She held on to the memory of the man she had met in that pool-playing bar, the man she had married so impulsively. But as time went on, the reality of her situation became harder to ignore. As the honeymoon phase faded, Omaima would disclose a darker side to Bill. This was just the beginning of a series of events that would spiral into a story of unimaginable horror. Behind closed doors, the relationship turned volatile, marked by instances of physical and sexual abuse. Oma Nelson's early marital bliss had quickly faded into a terrifying reality. The man she had married, Bill Nelson, had allegedly shown a darker side that was far removed from the charming individual she had met at the pool-playing bar. As the days turned into weeks, Omaima found herself in a situation she couldn't escape. The age difference of 33 years, initially a minor detail, now seemed to cast a shadow over their relationship. The man she had married was not the man she thought she knew. In her account, she painted a picture of a man who was abusive, both physically and sexually, turning their home into a place of fear and uncertainty. The situation reached a boiling point on Thanksgiving Day, 1991. Omaima recounted a harrowing incident within the confines of their Costa Mesa apartment. Allegedly, Bill had subjected her to a sexual assault, which quickly escalated to attempted rape and strangulation. Fearing for her life, Omaima was pushed to react in self-defense. She seized a lamp, using it to strike Bill. But the assault didn't end there. In a desperate bid for survival, she resorted to a pair of scissors, wielding them with enough force to fatally wound her husband. In that moment, she was no longer a wife, but a woman fighting for her life. But the nightmare did not end with Bill's demise. In the aftermath of that fateful Thanksgiving Day, the apartment on Costa Mesa would become the stage for a crime that would shock the nation and forever etch the name Omaima Nelson into the annals of America's most gruesome crimes. But that is a story for the next scene. In the aftermath of Bill's death, Omaima Nelson descended into a macabre madness. In a chilling sequence of events, she dismembered his body, shocking sensibilities by cooking his head and hands, a grisly act that would later lead to comparisons with notorious serial killers like Hanibal, Lector, and Jeffrey Dhamer. But the horror didn't end there. Disturbingly, reports surfaced that Omaima had initially castrated Bill. According to court documentation, a psychiatrist's testimony revealed that Nelson adorned herself with red shoes, a red hat, and red lipstick before engaging in the grotesque act of preparing her deceased husband. In the days that followed the shocking Thanksgiving incident, Omaima Nelson disturbingly combined her husband's remains with leftover turkey from the holiday feast. She attempted to dispose of some portions using a garbage disposal unit, while the remaining organs and body parts were wrapped in newspaper and concealed within trash bags. Subsequently, she transported these morbid parcels to a friend's residence, stowing them in the trunk of Bill's red 1975 Corvette. In a chilling testament to her desperation, she allegedly offered her acquaintance a sum of $75,000 to assist in the disposal process. However, her friend proved to be her undoing. Rather than becoming an accomplice to her horrifying deeds, the friend reported the terrifying request to the police. Prompted by this alarming report, the investigation into the gruesome crime began in earnest. With the discovery of the remains and the shocking nature of the crime, Omaima Nelson's descent into madness was about to be exposed to the world, and a dark chapter of true crime history was about to be written. When the friend reported the horrific request to the police, the investigation into the gruesome crime began in earnest. As law enforcement dug deeper into the shocking crime, Omaima Nelson remained a silent observer. With the grim state of the body hindering immediate determination of the cause of death, police faced a daunting task. The extent of the dismembered remains made identification challenging, leaving a palpable sense of dread hanging in the air. Prompt identification was a crucial part of the investigation, but it was just the tip of the iceberg. The authorities would soon find themselves embroiled in a labyrinth of clues, each more chilling than the last. The dark undercurrents of this case were about to surface, and the puzzle pieces would slowly start to fit together. Meanwhile, Omaima was taken into custody for an extended questioning session. There she sat, under the harsh glare of the interrogation room lights, her face giving away nothing. The detectives probed, trying to piece together the horrifying events that had unfolded. Each question was met with silence, the only sound in the room the steady tick of the clock. As the questioning stretched into the early hours of the morning, the police were no closer to the truth. The only certainty they had was the grim fact that Bill Nelson was no longer among the living. The how and why of it remained shrouded in mystery. In parallel to the questioning, another part of the investigation was unfolding. Bill Nelson had been reported missing after he failed to show up for work following the Thanksgiving break. Swanson, a significant figure in his life, had sounded the alarm, adding another layer to the already complex case. The police had to consider every angle, every possibility. Was this a case of a missing person turned murder victim, or was there more to it? As the night turned into day, the investigation continued. The police, unyielding in their pursuit of truth, began to uncover the horrifying details. The picture that was emerging was one of a brutal and calculated murder, a crime so shocking it would send ripples through the community. As the truth unraveled, the world would come to know the horrifying story of Oma Nelson. The investigation was just the beginning. The real horror lay in the details, yet to be uncovered, in the dark corners of a crime that would leave a lasting impact long after the case was closed. The gruesome crime committed by Oma Nelson sent shockwaves around the world. The macabre act of dismembering her husband, cooking his head, and frying his hands, these were not acts of ordinary criminality. They were acts of depravity that placed her in the same league as some of the most notorious killers in history. Omaima's crime had a profound impact, both locally and globally. It wasn't just the sheer brutality of her actions that stunned the public. It was the fact that a woman, and a former model no less, was capable of such horrific violence. This shook societal perceptions, challenging the stereotype of women as solely victims of violent crime rather than perpetrators. The echoes of her deeds reverberated far beyond the courtroom, and the media was quick to draw comparisons between Omaima and infamous killers. The likes of Hanibal Lector, the fictional character known for his cannibalistic tendencies, and Jeffrey Dhamer, the real-life monster who dismembered and consumed his victims, were invoked as parallels to Omaima's gruesome acts. While these comparisons may seem sensationalist, they underscore the severity and the horror of her crimes. In the aftermath of her trial, Omaima was sentenced to 27 years to life in prison. Her story became a cautionary tale, a chilling example of how quickly a seemingly normal life can spiral into darkness. Her crime has been the subject of numerous documentaries, books, and films, ensuring that the name Oma Nelson will forever be associated with one of the most shocking crimes of the late 20th century. Yet, perhaps the most significant legacy of Omaima's crime is the conversation it sparked around domestic abuse and violence. It served as a stark reminder that violence can originate from any corner, irrespective of gender, background, or status. It underscored the urgency to address these issues comprehensively and compassionately to prevent such horrific incidents from recurring. In the annals of true crime, Oma Nelson's story stands as a chilling reminder of the depths to which humanity can descend. It's a tale of horror, of tragedy, and of a life that went irrevocably off the rails. As we delve into these dark chapters of human history, let us not forget the lessons they teach us, the conversations they ignite, and the changes they spur in our collective consciousness.